Dear listener, long before the great empires of later history rose to dominate the world, there existed a powerful kingdom deep in the southern lands of Arabia. It was a land of trade routes, fertile valleys, and towering structures built by a civilization that had mastered agriculture and commerce in the harsh desert environment. This kingdom was known as Saba, a place whose influence reached far beyond its borders. But what made this kingdom remarkable was not only its wealth or architecture, it was its ruler. In a time when leadership across most civilizations was dominated by kings and warriors, the throne of Saba was occupied by a woman, a queen remembered in Islamic tradition as Bilqis, the Queen of Sheba. Her rule was not symbolic. She commanded authority over a powerful people, a structured government, and a kingdom strong enough to be recognized across the region. Yet despite her intelligence and political strength, there was something deeply flawed within her kingdom. The people of Saba had fallen into a form of worship that had spread through many ancient cultures. Instead of worshipping the Creator, they worshipped the sun. Every morning, they bowed before its rising light, believing it to be the source of life and power. The Quran describes this moment through a discovery that no one could have predicted. Far away from the lands of Saba, another ruler governed a kingdom unlike any other, Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. His rule was extraordinary because Allah had granted him authority over humans, jinn, and even animals. Birds, winds, and creatures of the earth were part of the order of his kingdom. One day, while inspecting the birds under his command, Sulaiman noticed something unusual. One of the birds was missing. It was the hoopoe, a small bird known for its distinctive crown of feathers. To an ordinary king, the absence of a bird might have meant nothing. But to Sulaiman, every part of his kingdom operated with purpose. No creature disappeared without reason. He warned that the bird would be punished for its absence unless it returned with a clear explanation. Contrast filled this moment. A tiny bird versus a powerful prophet king. A small absence versus a serious command. Then the hoopoe returned, and the news it carried would reveal a kingdom that had remained hidden from the prophetic court. A kingdom ruled by a queen with a magnificent throne, immense wealth, and a people devoted not to Allah, but to the sun. The bird described what it had seen in a distant land. A nation powerful and organized, a throne unlike any other, and a queen whose authority rivaled that of kings. But the most troubling part of the report was not their power, it was their worship. For Sulaiman alayhi salam, this discovery was not merely political news, it was a matter of faith. A powerful nation existed under a capable ruler, yet they remained unaware of the true creator. And so, what began as the absence of a single bird was about to become the beginning of one of the most fascinating encounters recorded in the Quran, the meeting between Prophet Sulaiman and Queen Bilqis of Saba. When the hoopoe finally returned, it did not come back timidly or silently. It came with urgency, as if it had witnessed something too important to keep hidden. The small bird stood before Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, aware that it had been absent without permission, yet confident that the news it carried would explain everything. And it began with a remarkable statement. "I have learned something you do not know." For a tiny bird to speak such words before a prophet king might sound bold, even dangerous. Yet, Sulaiman did not react with anger. Instead, he listened. Leadership grounded in wisdom does not reject truth simply because it comes from an unexpected source. The hoopoe then revealed what it had discovered during its journey. It had traveled to a distant land called Saba, a powerful kingdom in the southern region of Arabia. This was not a weak tribe living in isolation. It was a thriving civilization with organized governance, advanced agriculture, and a level of wealth that had built one of the most impressive royal thrones of its time. And at the center of that kingdom sat a queen. The bird described her rule with striking detail. She possessed authority over her people, and her throne was magnificent, a symbol of power and stability. This alone made the discovery unusual. In many societies of that era, leadership rarely belonged to women. Yet in Saba, Bilqis ruled with clear control over her nation. But the most troubling part of the report was not her leadership. It was the belief system of her people. The Hupoi explained that the queen and her nation prostrated to the sun instead of Allah. Every day they bowed before the rising sun, believing it to be the source of their prosperity. What they did not realize was that the true creator was the one who revealed what is hidden in the heavens and the earth. Contrast filled the report. A powerful civilization versus spiritual ignorance. Wealth and intelligence versus misdirected worship. The Hupo described how Shaitan had beautified their actions, making sun worship appear natural and justified. Because of this deception, the people of Saba had become blind to the truth. Their kingdom flourished materially, yet spiritually it stood disconnected from the Creator. The bird's report ended with a powerful reminder: Allah alone deserves worship, the one who knows what people hide and what they reveal. Sulaiman alayhi salam listened carefully. This was not simply news about a distant kingdom. It was a spiritual concern. A powerful nation existed under an intelligent queen, yet they remained unaware of the truth of Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. Still, Sulaiman did not rush to judgment. A wise ruler verifies information before acting. He told the Hupo that they would test its report. If the bird had spoken truthfully, a message would be sent to this distant queen. And that message would not come through armies or threats. It would come through a letter that would soon arrive in the hands of Queen Bilqis and shake the foundation of her kingdom. After hearing the Hupo's report, Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam did not rush to confrontation. A lesser ruler might have sent an army immediately, seeking dominance over a distant kingdom. But Sulaiman was not driven by conquest. His mission was guidance. Instead of war, he chose a message. He wrote a letter, simple in words yet powerful in meaning. The Quran preserves its essence. It began with the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, and its command was clear: do not rise in arrogance against me, but come in submission. Once the message was written, Sulaiman entrusted the same Hupo bird to deliver it. The bird flew across vast distances, carrying a letter that would soon reach the palace of one of the most powerful rulers in Arabia. When the letter finally arrived, it landed before Queen Bilqis. The moment itself must have been surprising. A bird delivering a royal message was not an ordinary event. The queen picked up the letter and read its contents carefully. As she finished reading, she turned to the leaders and advisors of her kingdom and spoke words that reveal much about her character. "O chiefs, indeed, a noble letter has been delivered to me." This sentence alone reflects her intelligence. She did not react with anger or arrogance. She recognized immediately that the letter came from a ruler of significance. Instead of dismissing it, she treated it seriously. She then read the message aloud to her council: in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, do not exalt yourselves against me, but come to me in submission. The room must have been filled with tension. Contrast defined the moment. A distant prophet king challenging a powerful queen, prophetic authority versus royal sovereignty. But Bilqis did something remarkable. Instead of reacting impulsively, she turned to her advisors and said, "Advise me in this matter. I do not decide any matter until you are present with me." This reveals a leadership quality that history often overlooks: consultation. She did not rule through ego or isolation. She valued the perspective of her council. Her advisors responded with confidence. They reminded her of the strength of their kingdom. Their army was powerful, their warriors capable. If she wished, they were ready for war. Yet they left the final decision to her. Bilqis listened carefully, but her response revealed wisdom beyond military pride. She explained that when kings invade lands, they often bring destruction. Cities are ruined, leaders are humiliated, and societies are destabilized. She understood the consequences of conflict. So instead of choosing immediate confrontation, she decided on a diplomatic approach. She would send gifts to Sulaiman and observe how he responded. If he accepted them, it might mean he was like other kings who valued wealth and tribute. But if he rejected them, it would prove something different about his mission. Contrast sharpened again. Wealth versus principle. Political diplomacy versus prophetic purpose. And soon, the gifts from Saba would arrive before Prophet Sulaiman, triggering a response that would reveal the true nature of his authority. When the gifts from the kingdom of Saba arrived, they carried the weight of Bilqis's strategy. Precious items, wealth and luxury were sent across the distance between the two kingdoms. In the world of politics and diplomacy, gifts often served as signals, gestures meant to test the intentions of another ruler. But when the envoys of Bilqis presented the gifts to Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, his reaction was immediate and firm. He refused them. Sulaiman made it clear that what Allah had given him was far greater than any wealth they could offer. His kingdom was not built on gold or tribute. It was built on divine authority. The wealth of Saba held no power over him. Then he sent the envoys back with a warning. If the queen continued to resist the truth, he would approach with forces that her kingdom could not withstand. This response changed everything. Bilqis now understood that Sulaiman was not an ordinary king. His power was different, something beyond military strength or political influence. So she decided to travel by herself and see him. News of her journey reached Sulaiman before she arrived. As preparations were made to receive her, the prophet decided to demonstrate something extraordinary, not as a display of arrogance, but as a sign that would awaken her understanding. He turned to those gathered around him, humans and jinn who served within his court, and asked a remarkable question. Which of you can bring me her throne before she arrives here in submission? The throne of Bilqis was famous for its magnificence. It was massive, richly decorated and protected within the palace of Saba. Transporting it across such a vast distance would normally be impossible. Immediately, one of the powerful jinn spoke. "I will bring it to you before you rise from your seat," the jinn said confidently. This was already impressive. A jinn offering to transport a royal throne across the world within a short time was beyond normal human ability. Yet, before Sulaiman could respond, another voice spoke. This time, it was a man described in the Quran as someone who possessed knowledge from the book. He said, "I will bring it to you before your glance returns to you." In other words, before Sulaiman could even finish turning his gaze, the throne would appear. And then it happened. In an instant, faster than any movement the eye could follow, the throne of Queen Bilqis appeared before Sulaiman. The distance between Saba and his court had been crossed in a moment, but instead of celebrating the miracle as his own achievement, Sulaiman responded with humility. He immediately said that this was from the favor of his Lord, a test to see whether he would remain grateful or become arrogant. Contrast filled the moment. Massive distance versus instant arrival, power versus humility, miracle versus gratitude. Then Sulaiman ordered something else. He instructed his court to alter the appearance of the throne slightly. Small changes were made so that when the queen arrived, she would be asked whether she recognized it. Soon, Bilqis would enter the court of Sulaiman, unaware that the throne she believed was safely guarded in her distant palace was already waiting for her, and what she would witness next would challenge everything she thought she understood about power. When Queen Bilqis finally approached the court of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, she entered a place unlike any palace she had ever seen. The kingdom of Sheba was powerful and wealthy, and her own throne had symbolized authority across her land. Yet the environment surrounding Sulaiman carried a different kind of power, one that did not depend on wealth alone. The first moment of surprise came even before she entered the main palace. Sulaiman ordered that the throne brought from Sheba be placed before her. But it had been slightly altered so that it would not appear completely identical. When Bilqis was brought into the court, she was asked a simple question: "Is your throne like this?" The moment demanded careful thinking. If she immediately claimed it was hers, she risked being wrong because of the alterations. If she denied it, she might ignore the obvious resemblance. Her answer revealed her intelligence. She replied, "It seems to be the same." This response showed both awareness and caution. She recognized the throne, but avoided arrogance in her answer. The Queen of Sheba was not easily confused, and Sulaiman could see her wisdom in how she handled the situation. But the greater moment of realization was still ahead. Bilqis was then invited to enter the palace itself. As she walked forward, she saw what appeared to be a pool of water stretching across the entrance. The surface reflected light so clearly that it looked like flowing water covering the ground. Thinking she would have to step through water, she lifted her garment slightly to avoid getting it wet. But when she stepped forward, she realized something unexpected. The floor was not water at all. It was crystal glass, perfectly transparent with water flowing beneath it. The structure created an illusion so convincing that even a careful observer could mistake it for a pool. This moment carried deep symbolism. Contrast filled the scene: illusion versus reality, worldly perception versus divine wisdom. The palace of Sulaiman was not designed merely to impress visitors. It demonstrated the extraordinary resources Allah had granted him. His kingdom combined human skill, jinn labor, and divine blessing to create things that no ordinary ruler could achieve. For Bilqis, this was a turning point. She had ruled a powerful kingdom and commanded a magnificent throne. Yet the palace she now stood inside revealed a level of authority that surpassed her own. The power supporting Sulaiman was not simply political strength, it was divine support. In that moment, her understanding shifted. The queen who had once led a nation in sun worship now recognized the truth standing before her. The Quran records her words as a declaration of realization. "My Lord, indeed I have wronged myself, and I submit with Sulaiman to Allah, the Lord of the worlds." With these words, Bilqis accepted the truth of Tawheed. Her journey from distant queen to believer was complete. She had not been forced into submission by war or conquest. Instead, she had been guided through wisdom, signs, and reflection. The powerful ruler of Sheba now stood not as an opponent of Sulaiman, but as a believer alongside him. And yet, long after her story spread through history, another mystery began to circulate. A question that would puzzle historians and storytellers for centuries. Was Queen Bilqis truly human? Or was there something more unusual about her origin? After the story of Queen Bilqis spread through history, a curious idea began to appear in some historical writings and folk traditions. Some storytellers claimed that the Queen of Sheba was not fully human, that she was half human and half jinn. These stories often described her as the daughter of a human king and a jinn mother, suggesting that her unusual intelligence or the magnificence of her kingdom might have come from a supernatural lineage. But when we return to the Quran itself, something important becomes clear. The Quran never says that Bilqis was part jinn. In Surah An-Naml, where her story is described in detail, she is presented simply as a queen ruling over her people. The Quran emphasizes her political authority, her magnificent throne, and her leadership over a powerful nation. It focuses on her wisdom, her consultation with advisors, and ultimately her acceptance of faith. None of these verses mention a jinn ancestry. So where did the half-jinn story come from? Most scholars explain that these ideas likely emerged from later historical narratives or cultural storytelling. As people retold the story across generations, imagination sometimes mixed with history. Because Prophet Sulaiman commanded jinn within his kingdom, some storytellers may have assumed that a queen associated with his story must also have some connection to them. But Islamic scholarship generally treats such claims with caution. Contrast becomes important here: revelation versus speculation, Quranic truth versus later legend. The real significance of Bilqis does not come from any supernatural ancestry. It comes from her character and choices. She was a ruler who demonstrated intelligence and humility. When confronted with the truth, she did not cling to pride or political power. Instead, she reflected carefully and ultimately submitted to Allah. This decision defines her legacy. Bilqis represents something rare in history, a leader willing to change when faced with truth. Many rulers respond to challenges with war or stubborn pride. She responded with reflection, consultation, and wisdom. Her story also highlights another important lesson: strength and humility can exist together. She governed a wealthy kingdom and commanded a powerful court, yet she was capable of recognizing divine authority when she encountered it. The Quran preserves her story not as a legend of supernatural origins, but as an example of guidance reaching even the most powerful people on earth. Contrast sharpens again: myth versus message, curiosity about ancestry versus reflection on faith. The real question about Bilqis was never whether she was part jinn. The real question was whether a ruler surrounded by power and wealth could recognize the truth when it appeared before her. And the answer, preserved in the Quran, is clear. Queen Bilqis chose faith over pride, and through that choice, her story became one of the most remarkable journeys from worldly power to submission to Allah.